People who work for the super wealthy, what stuff have you seen? Story 1. I often do work for the wives of wealthy professionals. The thing that has always stood out to me is that, if I tell them that something they want isn't doable, they respond with literal confusion. It isn't anger. It's confusion. They are so unaccustomed to not being given exactly what they want, it's as if they don't understand what is happening when they are told they can't have something. Story 2. I work as a private chef in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area for mostly high net worth families. Venture capitalists, CEOs, owners of sports teams, stuff like that. Here's what I've seen. They don't raise their kids. Every single family has house staff. Sometimes one for each child. They are not well adjusted, all attend private school, have drivers, and don't understand how anything works. I had to explain what public school is to a kid once. They shop differently than we do. When we go to the store, we buy what we need. A 12-pack of seltzer, only the paper towels or snacks we need. These families order everything and in bulk. It's not one 12-pack of Spindrift, it's whole cases. And everything is ordered and delivered. I've been to homes with floor-to-ceiling cabinets of just beverages. They do not take the subway or public transportation, ever. A room dedicated only to silverware and another just for serving platters. The amount of money spent weekly on fresh flowers is obscene. They are beautiful, but dang. A dining room table that cost $250,000. They spend more money on kitchens they'll never use that most people will ever spend on a vehicle. I've worked on $20,000 plus ranges in private homes. The homes. I worked for a family during the summer of last year that had at least $75 million across 3 properties alone. It's absolutely wild. They will often try to undercut you. Only a few times have I had a billionaire look at my rate and not try to get me to take less. I've been standing in a $40 million Hamptons home listening to a woman try to negotiate me down. They eat way simpler than you could imagine. I've written extensive fine dining menus for private dinners only to be asked for something as simple as steak, mashed potatoes, and broccoli rabe. No joke, this is a standing dish for a client of mine. So dang simple. They will give you all expenses paid trips just so they don't have to worry about cooking their own meals. Aspen, Cabo, Hamptons, Jackson Hole. It doesn't matter. They don't want to cook. Story 3. I babysat for an old money family as a teenager. Massive house that had passageways in walls that the kids would use to play hide and seek. The basement had a passageway to a weird underground cellar that had been bricked off for decades. One day, the dad, who was the coolest dude I've ever met, asked if I wanted to earn an extra $200. I said sure, and he asked me to help him knock down the brick wall because after 40 years, he can't stand it and has to know what's behind it. We go down and knock this wall out only to find that in the late 1800s his family had slaves. Instead of setting them free when slavery was abolished, they put these 4 poor women in the cellar and walled them in. The smell when that wall came down was awful. Even 20 years later, we have no idea what their names were or anything other than they were women. They buried them in the old family cemetery at the back of the property, right next to the relatives that walled them in to die. I still visit the family as I'm great friends with the older kids and always go back and put out flowers on those women's graves. They have headstones that simply say in memoriam since we don't actually know their names. Story 4. I have a friend who owns his own business. He was in this house one time doing some work. As he passed a room, he saw a Gibson Les Paul guitar leaned up in the corner. He mentioned it to the owner of the home, just making a statement. "Hey, I saw that Les Paul up there, do you play?" The owner basically said that they had purchased the guitar for their son when he was in high school, but he had since gone off to college and the guitar probably hadn't been touched by anyone except their maid in over 5 years. My buddy was like, "Cool. Well, that's a pretty nice guitar. It's a shame it doesn't get played more often," and then went back to working. That was it. No more conversation. As he was walking out after finishing the job, the owner came down with the guitar in his hand and asked my buddy if he wanted it. He tried to say no, but the person wouldn't take no for an answer. And that is how my buddy got a $10,000 Gibson Les Paul for free. Story 5. Used to work for a real estate development company. The boss was the richest guy in town. The second biggest office was given to his wife, who did nothing. Her office was entirely bright pink. They put in a private bathroom just for her, and her parking space was double wide because she couldn't park straight. She used employees to run all her personal errands. It was very annoying, but we were told we had to do everything she said. I remember she once asked me to print out a whole website for her. Story 6. Wife is personal assistant for a wealthy and incredibly powerful man. Self-made and humble. Uncomfortable in small social gatherings, but a lion in a business setting. Understated houses. What I found most interesting is the guy would think nothing of dropping 5 figures on jewelry or other luxury items, but come the end of the day on a Friday, that guy is in the kitchen at the office taking home all the leftover bagels from the morning. Story 7. My friend's wife was a nanny for a family where both parents were vice presidents of a pharmaceutical company and were already from old money families. They paid her $1,000 per week in cash to basically be a full-time parent. When she left around 5, they had a second nighttime nanny that would come and take over. The kids were not allowed to go to their grandparents' house because the grandparents had a lot of nice antiques and were afraid the kids would break something. When she quit, the kids had to be put in grief counseling because they felt like they lost a parent. The parents would regularly have to ask her what their favorite food was, what they enjoy doing, what clothes they like, and what sizes they wear. She loved the money but said it just became too depressing to keep doing it because of how little they cared about interacting with their children. Story 8. I work with some very wealthy people. I work in non-profit. Wealthy people who claim to donate hundreds of thousands of dollars a year or even millions of dollars a year do so in deceptive ways. For example, this very rich person in a large city in the USA has a big yacht. He decides that if he would rent his yacht to someone, he would charge $5,000 an hour. No sane person would ever actually pay him $5,000 an hour for his stupid yacht. So, he will rent his yacht to a non-profit organization for 5 hours at a total of $25,000 so that they can host an event on his yacht. He will then write up an invoice and gift that 5 hours or $25,000 to that non-profit organization. He can then take that $25,000 and get a write-off on his taxes. This same guy will hang out at the non-profit organization's party and drink their wine, eat their catered food, and he will get someone to captain the ship for free by telling the guy, "Hey, it's for a non-profit, don't you want to help them?" He enjoys $25,000, free dinner, free booze, and a big round of applause for his generosity. He can also avoid an annual tax fee from that city by donating boat time to politicians of that city. Want to host your city worker party on my boat? No problem, write me a law that says the annual boat docking tax for my huge yacht is waived if I donate a number of hours a year of yacht time to your city workers or non-profit organizations. These laws are slipped into omnibus packages and they even look good at first glance. The politician can say, "See, we make the rich pay their fair share in our city while the yacht owner is taking that check right to the bank. They do this for yachts, property, jets, etc. Then they can go around saying they donate so much money to all these non-profits. They can charge rates nobody in their right mind would ever pay because the IRS will pay them on tax credits. And none of this is illegal." Story 9. I worked at a house in which both father and mother were so busy making money in order to give their children a better quality of life that the eldest son who was at my school joined a gang. That guy didn't lack money, but he lacked empathy, love for other people, respect towards others, and control of emotions. Story 10. I did carpentry for a summer to save up money for school. We would go to huge mansions and amazing houses that needed work done. Usually easy stuff like decorative things, so most times it would be 1 to 2 days of work. Most times we would work and the family would be home. It's not a problem, very normal. Once, a family had kids and they watched a TikTok video on what poor people eat. It was about how to cook things like 10-cent ramen and bread with sausages to make hot dogs. They laughed and thought it was fun, so they made the food to try in the kitchen. They hated it all. This was the food I grew up eating my whole life. That packet of ramen was the same as the dinner waiting for me at home. Story 11. Worked in recruitment finding crew for super yachts many years ago. Put forward a candidate for a chief engineer on a very well-known yacht owned by a very well-known individual. The candidate was the perfect fit of knowledge and experience, and the guy was super friendly and nice as well. They turned him down because he wears glasses and the owner doesn't want anyone with disabilities working on board. Story 12. I am a dentist and used to own a dental office in an extremely wealthy area. I feel like really rich people come in two flavors, very humble and generous, or just 100% a-hole. Most are the a-hole. Not much in the middle. True wealthy people care a lot about time, not money. If there was any hiccup in a procedure or something wasn't correct, they would flip out. 99% of the issues they would flip out about I could fix, but that meant they had to make another dentist appointment, which wasted their time. I hated working on rich people. Best day of my life is when I sold that dental office. Story 13. I was the project manager for a mansion build for one of the founders of a major health insurance company here in the US. This guy was one of the best billionaire I've ever worked for. He showed up nearly every day in shorts and flip-flops and would treat all of us like equals. This was around the time that President Obama was about to put out Obamacare. I was in a meeting with the owner, and President Obama called him on his cell to discuss the plan. The owner tells us to hold on, the president is calling, to which someone jokingly made a comment about thinking he was joking. The owner asks Obama to say hi to the team, and he did. It was surreal to be at the table with him when the call came through, and an experience I will never forget. Story 14. You weren't allowed to hand him or his family things that have already been opened or used. That bottle of sunscreen that was only used once. Don't even think about it. Everything has to be new. There was a desk that had bottles and bottles of just sunscreen that they only used once and never again. The interesting thing was this guy owned an eco-resort. Story 15. My friend is a mechanic. A wealthy, fat, famous and all-round unlikable entrepreneur came into his work one day and took a liking to his coworker. He asked my friend's coworker to come and work for him maintaining his car collection. It was really good pay and he got to work on some cool cars, so he thought, why not? His days were spent working on old, rare sports cars on his sprawling property, but every now and again, he'd get sent to Europe or the United States to check out cars said entrepreneur was interested buying. He'd get sent to auctions all the time and ring up said entrepreneur while it was happening so he could bid on the car on his behalf. Story 16. I briefly cleaned houses one summer and these houses were insane. Some had elevators. Some had stalls in their master bathroom. One had a literal cave manufactured in the bathroom, with shower heads all throughout it. You could walk from one end and come out the other side of the bathroom, split by a massive hot tub. What struck me as odd in almost every house was the sense of disuse. They had grand pianos covered in dust, expensive lamps and throw pillows with the tags still on them, sprawling playrooms with every toy any child could want, totally devoid of playing children. The weirdest house I cleaned though wasn't huge and it wasn't gorgeous. It was pretty normal on the outside. But inside, the entire house was filled with piles of clothes. Everywhere. I pulled aside my fellow cleaner and asked, with all sincerity, how to clean this house. She told me to go around the piles as best you can. They had a mountain of clothes in the living room, like something out of a cartoon. Every couch had stacks of brand new clothes with tags on them. They were the only folded clothes anywhere. In the bedroom it was the same. Smaller piles in every corner, couldn't fully open or close doors around them. The kids' bathroom didn't even have a shower curtain. Best guess after cleaning that house as best we could is that they don't wash clothes. I think they just buy more and discard the dirty clothes into the piles. I think about that house a lot and wonder if they ever got their shit together. If you've gotten this far and enjoying the content, please leave a comment of your own story. We'd love to make a video of them in the future. Story 17. Had a client who purchased a newly built penthouse apartment and wanted a jacuzzi on the balcony. It would have meant a structural column was needed in the middle of the balcony below, which the contractor who built the apartment block wouldn't go for, as it would impact selling that apartment. Client buys the apartment below, approves the column, jacuzzi is installed, then privately sells the apartment below. Voila, problem solved. Story 18. The owner of my company had a customer pay off a giant debt by signing over a yacht to him. When he went to the marina to get the storage info transferred to his name and saw how much it cost to store the yacht there, he bought the marina. Story 19. I did a male nanny job for a rich couple who wanted someone to care for their kids. The wife didn't want a female nanny, and I was in college, so it helped pay the bills. One day, they asked, "Do you want to go to Hawaii?" Turns out the company that the husband was the COO of was doing an executive retreat in Hawaii. Instead of finding daycare in Hawaii for their kids, they thought it'd be easier to just pay for me to fly to Hawaii, care for the kids during the day, and then have my evenings or their family time free. So I went to Hawaii on their dime, had my own hotel room, they paid me for my time and gave me a large stipend for my own food and entertainment. I ended up with pretty much every evening off, so I got to spend it. During the day I brought their kids to the beach, we went hiking, and did some touristy running around. On top of that, they gave me $5,000 in spending money in case any of the kids wanted anything. I had to show receipts, but when I tried to turn in the receipts, the wife just said, "Oh, don't worry about it, it's only a couple grand," and never verified how I'd spent some of that money. I couldn't tell if she just trusted me implicitly by that point, or if she truly thought the amount was so small it didn't matter. Story 20. Years ago I used to work carpentry, mainly doing sunrooms. One of our clients was a brain surgeon who was married to a lawyer, and they subsequently had a massive house on a large property. Their son was also some type of neuroscientist, and with his parents' permission, had yet another massive house built on this same property. Problem is, city ordinances prohibit two separate livable dwellings on the same property. Mind you, these houses were about a quarter-mile away from each other. So to comply with the ordinances, they build a feking wall between the houses. And this isn't just some dinky picket fence type of wall. It's a massive medieval-style wall that has round towers with merlons and crenelles, a gym midway through, and a massive $750,000 plus all-glass sunroom. All the while being wide enough to have room for a walking path and a road for golf carts inside the wall. The city ordinance said only one livable dwelling can be on their property, so they just made a massive hallway between their houses. Story 21. Worked as one of 4 full-time groundskeepers at a large estate. 46 acres of lawn to mow twice a week. 2 clay tennis courts, 3 pools, 1 for the main house and 1 for each of the 2 guest houses. 100+ acre private lake with boathouse. No clue how big the whole estate was, including the woods. Personal favorite was the 3-mile personal racetrack. But what really blew my mind was that he hosted his niece's wedding one summer, paid $350,000 to have this massive willow tree trucked in and planted by the lake for wedding photos. Only to pay another $50,000 to have it removed and the landscaping returned to its original state after the wedding, because he did not like the look of it. Story 22. I used to work at a members-only golf and country club. There were members who had been actors, athletes, race car drivers, former CEO of Google, some major money and egos going on. There was one family that had 3 teenage kids, 2 girls and a boy. The mom and the girls were very attractive and knew it. They always looked amazing and had overly entitled attitudes to match. They were fancy. Well, the lady who washed the linens for the county club also did house cleaning for some members. This family was one of them. She said their multimillion-dollar home was a disaster filth zone. They basically did no housework in between having the cleaning lady there. Dishes piled with dried food that smelled, dirty clothes thrown everywhere, piles of crap all over, sticky floors, dog poop left on the floor. But the nastiest part was the bathrooms. She said they wouldn't empty their bathroom trashes and the ladies of the house would throw their used tampons on top of overflowing trash, so she had to pick up their used women's products thrown on the floor, not even wrapped in paper. So, these fancy gals would walk around the club like they were so superior and look down on everyone, then would go home and act like wild apes throwing their trash and period products on the ground. The thought of being so out of touch that you decide it is beneath you to even be sanitary because you can just pay someone to do that for you is just beyond insanity. Story 23. Had a client come into our 3D printing office. His attention was immediately caught by a large industrial 3D printer in our showroom. Pulled out a credit card and bought a $250,000 machine on the spot. Best part was when we installed the machine at his facility. The first thing he wanted to print was a meter-tall penis. Few weeks after the install, we got a photo of him standing next to the meter penis. Money well spent. Story 24. My brother-in-law builds custom homes in the redneck Riviera belt of Florida. One day, he called me to come over to this $15 million beach house he was doing a complete remodel of. He was the original builder. He asked me to bring my truck and trailer. I show up, and he walks me through all 4 floors. He then says the owners have removed all the stuff they want to keep. She has told me to dispose of everything as I see fit. Get what you want. Furniture, appliances, outdoor furniture, rugs, lamps, artwork, you name it. I don't know the value of everything I took home with me that day, but it was the highest end stuff I've ever seen. 4 floors of it, and I only got 1 trailer load because I simply couldn't fit anything else in my house. I likely had over $20,000 worth of furniture and appliances on that trailer. Story 25. My sister is a butler for a super wealthy family. The family once got this super expensive rare breed cat, and a few months later the wife tells my sister she can feel the cat isn't quite happy in their house. She asks her to take their private jet to drop the cat off in their mansion in Lake Como, Italy so it could spend a holiday in the sun. That same woman would then sometimes berate my sister for buying soap in plastic dispensers instead of just soap bars because it's bad for our planet. They bought this insanely huge super luxurious cabin in one of the most expensive ski stations in Switzerland. They realized the cabin, right next to theirs, was for sale and then bought that one as well just so they wouldn't have close neighbors. Story 26. Bartending at a fancy party in a very wealthy older couple's house where these people had art on display they had bought from museums. I was working in a room where 3 walls were glass and you could see this beautiful manicured garden with sculptures. When the sun started to set, these big floppy-eared white bunnies started to appear and frolic around the yard. I asked someone who worked in the house about the rabbits. The rich people bought them as a garden feature. Every once in a while they had to cull the rabbit population. The rabbits were decorations. This was also the night when I was making an older man a drink and he decided to ask me, "So, what are the poor people doing tonight?" Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to Thread Talk for more content like this. Also, don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out. Have a dope day and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers!